Bonjour et bienvenue à la nouvelle édition de français pour les anciens étudiants d'espagnol. Vous aurez besoin de votre cahier, bien sûr, et un stylo ou un crayon. Puis, s'il vous plaît, tournez la prochaine page. Pour moi, c'est la page 41. Please use whatever page is appropriate for you. Ok, comme toujours, la date, c'est aujourd'hui le 11, 12, 16. And today we're going to talk about 3 irregular verbs. Les verbes irréguliers, devoir, pouvoir et vouloir. Okay. So les verbes irréguliers. And you will remember that un verbe irrégulier does not follow a pattern. So these 3 verbs do not follow a predictable pattern. And we are first going to deal with the verb devoir. You may have seen this verb before, because un devoir is a task or something that you do. And these verbs do have equivalents in Spanish, and indeed they are used very, very similarly to how they are used in Spanish. So let's start off with the verb in Spanish, deber. And deber means to owe, or it has the sense of something that you ought to do. To owe or ought to. The sense of obligation or owing. So deber en español, yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and these 3 take the same form, so we're going to bracket them in our notes today. Then we have nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, and ustedes, and again, we're going to put a bracket here because the third person forms share the same word. So remember that this is a regular ER verb in Spanish, and so we drop the ER and we add our endings. So we have debo, debes, debe for all 3 of these forms. Then we have debemos, debéis, and remember the vosotros form is only used in Spain. It has an accent over the E because this is an ER verb. And then the ellos, ellas, and ustedes form is deben. Now, in Spanish, this is a regular verb. Unfortunately, in French, we are dealing with 3 verbs that end in war, O-I-R. Anytime you see a verb that ends in war in Spanish, either O-I-R or O-I-R-E, it's an irregular verb. Automatically, expect that it will not follow a pattern and that it will generally be a giant pain to deal with. You must know them and memorize them. Okay, d'accord? So now let's look at the verb devoir. Okay. Devoir. So in French, devoir is also to owe. It can be used that way. It isn't generally, but it can be. Sort of the idea of must, or have to, or supposed to be doing, supposed to, etc. This idea, once again, of obligation, something that you have to do. That is some sort of a task, which is why les devoirs or le devoir is homework. Okay? It's a task that you must do. So, s'il vous plaît, oh, bof, getting Spanish in my French today. Je, tu, il, elle, on, les pronoms de sujet. Je, tu, il, elle, on. Nous, vous, il pluriel, elle pluriel. Now this verb does not look very regular except in the nous and the vous form, so let's start there. If this was a regular type of verb of any sort, you would expect to drop the IR and maybe add some letters to the end for your ending. In this case, we're going to drop the OIR, very similar to what we did with avoir, if you remember. So we're going to use de as our stem, and then we're going to add ONS, devons. So the vous form is devait. And that's where this verb ceases to have any correlation with the infinitive. These are irregular forms. So we have je dois, tu dois, il, elle, on doit, D-O-I-T, D-O-I-T, D-O-I-T. And then over here we have il and elle pluriel doivent, D-O-I-V-E-N-T, D-O-I-V-E-N-T. Now, some war verbs will do this where it has a wa in some of the forms. A lot of them don't. So you really just need to look them up to see how to pronounce and or conjugate them properly. Now, a lot of times with devoir, it is followed either by an infinitive. So, je dois faire le ménage, as I have to ménage, is I have to do housework. You could also use it for to owe. So Jacques doit. Jacques owes 20 euros à son ami. He owes 20 euros to his friend. Okay. You'll notice that when you use devoir and you're following it by an activity, you use the infinitive form, because in English we say I should do. And it doesn't quite, but if we look at have to, I have to do the housework. So to do, even in English we wouldn't conjugate that. If we make this negative, je ne dois pas faire le ménage. Because we have two verbs next to each other, doit and faire, we're going to make the first one negative and leave the second one alone. Okay. Now the other two verbs, pouvoir and vouloir, are frequently taught together, and you'll see why in just a moment. However, let's take a look at these verbs, vouloir and pouvoir, and their Spanish equivalents. So in Spanish, you may remember that we have poder, which means can or to be able to do something. Okay, and then the other one is querer. So poder, can or to be able. So we have yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, and ustedes. And let's put in our brackets for our third person forms because we know they'll react exactly the same. And you may also remember that poder is a stem changing verb, which means that we have to change what's left over after we drop the ER from our stem. However, you'll also remember that poder, being a stem changing verb, is a boot verb. And similarly to the boot verb that we looked at the other day when we were looking at RE verbs in French, whatever's left outside is going to act differently than what's inside. So the nosotros and vosotros forms here are exactly what you would expect in Spanish. So we're going to drop the ER. Then we're going to add our endings. So we have podemos, because this is an ER verb, and podeis, and again, has an accent over the E in the vosotros form. Why? Because this is an ER verb. Okay? And because this is a stem changing verb, we have to change the O to UE when we conjugate this. So, puedo, puedes, puede, puede, and pueden. Okay? And just like in Spanish, we can actually follow, just like in French from the other verb, that we can follow this with a verb. So, puedo bailar, I can dance. No podemos ir al concierto. We can't go to the concert. So there are ways to use this, and generally they're followed by an infinitive or an unconjugated verb. Then the other one that we have in Spanish is querer. Querer, which means to want. Okay? And in Spanish, This is an E to IE stem changing verb. Just like poder is a stem changing verb, querer is also a stem changing verb. So we have yo, tú, él, ella, usted, again with a bracket. Nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, and ustedes. And we'll bracket that information. And again, this is a stem changing verb, so you'll remember that in Spanish, all the stuff inside the boot acts the same, and we exclude the nosotros and vosotros forms because they don't stem change. So here, we're going to deal with them exactly the way we would normally. So we're going to drop the ER. We're going to add our endings. So we have queremos, we want, or queréis. And do you remember why we have an accent over the E? That's right, because this is an ER verb. And then here we have an E to IE stem changing verb, which means that everything inside this box is going to change E to IE. So we have quiero, quieres, quieres, quiere, and quieren. Q-U-I-R-E-N. Okay, so we have quieren. And that's how these two verbs work in Spanish. We can follow them with infinitives if we want to. We can follow them with other verbs, or we may be able to follow them with, actually, querer, we can follow with a noun. So, en français, on a pouvoir et vouloir. Pouvoir et vouloir. So, en français, we have pouvoir, which means can, or to be able. And it is an irregular verb. It is very irregular. Some of it, if you squint a little bit, you'll be able to see a correlation between the conjugated form and the infinitive. Sometimes you can't. So let's put in our subject pronouns, please. Je, tu, il, elle, on. Nous, vous, il pluriel et elle pluriel. Et comme toujours avec les verbes irréguliers, les formes de nous et de vous sont plus ou moins réguliers. So many times with irregular verbs, your nous and your vous form will be closest to your original form. So just like we did with devoir, we're going to drop the war for the nous and the vous form. And we have pouvons and pouvez. Okay? And then we have the rest of these forms. And the rest of these forms, they change. So ce sont peu, P, E, ou X, P, E, ou X. And you'll notice that a lot of times in French that the je and the tu form will either be very similar or they'll be identical. Then we have the il, elle, on form, which, like many other il, elle, on forms in French, is going to end with the letter T. P, P, E, U, T, P, E, U, T. And then over here we have peuvent. P, E, U, V, E, and T. P, E, U, V, E, and T. And you can see that, honestly, with the exception of this, they don't bear a lot of resemblance to the original. And like I said, verbs that end in war in French are always irregular, and you have to learn them. Okay, now, pouvoir is usually followed by a verb, to be able to do something. So you may have learned this in your class, and if you took French in high school, you definitely learned this. So let's look at, oh, that is actually something, the je form. There is an alternate je form, and that is je puis. And it's only used in the following case. So you would only use it if you're asking a question. Puis-je aller aux toilettes? Toilette is may I go to the bathroom? If you're asking for permission, you will a lot of times hear puis-je. It's not very common, but it does exist, and it is only used for asking questions. D'accord? Bon. However, you also have on peut écrire les notes. So we can write the notes. Nous ne pouvons pas faire du vélo. We can't ride a bicycle. I don't know why, but perhaps we just never learned. Nous ne pouvons pas faire du vélo. So again, when you have two verbs working next to each other, a verb followed by an infinitive, we have the ne pas around the conjugated verb. And we'll talk about verbs with infinitives on another page, okay? So, s'il vous plaît, we then have the verb, I'm going to actually draw a line across the page here. We have vouloir. Et vouloir, ça veut dire to want, or to wish for. And you will see that the reason that these two verbs are, oh là là moi, are taught together is because they have very similar forms. So we have je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, il pluriel, et elle pluriel. Okay? And just like with pouvoir, just like with devoir, we're going to drop the voir. And for the nous and the vous form, we're going to add our standard endings. So we have voulons and voulez. And now, the reason why these two verbs are taught together. You see all of these singular forms up here with pouvoir? All of these forms down here with vouloir are spelled identically, except it's a V instead of a P. So, je veux, V-E-U-X, V-E-U-X, tu veux. Il, elle, on veut, V-E-U-T, V-E-U-T, V-E-U-T. Puis, ici, il et elle pluriel. Up here, it's peuvent. Down here, it's veulent. V-E-U-L-E-N-T. V-E-U-L-E-N-T. And so, if you can see all of these on my screen, you can see that the forms are similar enough that they are frequently taught together. There is no alternate je form here. So, je veux boire de l'eau. I want to drink some water. Je veux boire de l'eau. Tu ne veux pas faire des photos. You don't want to take any photos. I don't know why you don't want to take any photos. Perhaps your phone is almost dead. Okay? So here we have these three verbs, les verbes irréguliers devoir, pouvoir et vouloir. So s'il vous plaît, à l'indice, et ça c'est la page 41 jusqu'à la page 43. Les verbes irréguliers devoir, pouvoir et vouloir. Et comme toujours, la date, c'est aujourd'hui le 11-12-16. Merci, au revoir.